Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit.
Mr. Hill, it's an honor, and I'll admit, a little surreal to be sitting here. For generations, millions of people around the world have started their days with your words, built their lives on your principles.
I'm grateful the philosophy found its way, Dr. Sinclair. That was always the intention.
And it certainly did. You see, the public perception of you, the image that's cemented in all our minds, is of the man given a great mission. You met the Titan Andrew Carnegie, and he challenged you to spend 20 years of your life on a monumental task, to uncover the secret to success from over 500 of America's greatest minds and deliver it as a simple formula to the common person, the person without money or connections. Is that image, that epic story, accurate?
The essence of the story is accurate, yes. The promise I made to Mr. Carnegie was precisely that the philosophy used by the world's achievers should not remain a private secret. It was to become a roadmap, a science available to anyone with the burning desire to achieve and the will to apply it.
Exactly, a roadmap. And that's the key word. Because a map needs to be accurate. It has to be reliable, and that's where, well, I'd like to take the discussion to a more challenging place.
Please, the most profound truths are often found on the other side of the most difficult questions.
Thank you. You see, today we live in a world where, thanks to the internet and digitized archives, we have access to information that was previously unavailable. And that information has led many critics, many researchers, to question parts of your story. They say there's no definitive, hard evidence of that initial meeting with Carnegie or the grand introduction to those 500 men, at least not in the way it's presented in Think and Grow Rich. They suggest that part may have been embellished. But that isn't the hardest part. The harder part is your own personal life. There are numerous records showing that you yourself, Mr. Hill, suffered repeated, devastating business failures throughout your life, that you struggled with severe financial hardship, that you experienced bankruptcy. So my question is this, and I hope you can see that this comes not from a place of accusation, but from a place of deep, honest confusion. How can we trust the principles of success from a teacher who didn't always pass his own life's tests? How can we trust a map from a map maker who, it seems, sometimes got lost along the way? That is the great conflict for the modern analytical mind.
That is perhaps the most important question anyone has asked me in a very long time, because it gets to the very heart of the matter.
Really?
Yes. Because you aren't searching for a perfect record. You're trying to understand a process. And you are correct in your assumptions. I did fail, many times. At times, spectacularly. More spectacularly than words can often describe. The stories you allude to, my business failures, they are all true.
Thank you for that honesty, Mr. Hill. That's very important. Could we perhaps talk about one of them? Your magazine, for instance, Hill's Golden Rule. It was launched with such tremendous passion and hope, but it didn't end well. What happened?
Ah, the magazine. Yes, I poured my entire being into that publication. I truly believed I had the formula. I thought that magazine would become the voice of the philosophy of success for all of America. I had good investors, prominent writers had promised to contribute. On paper, everything was perfect.
So where was the flaw?
The flaw was me. I was so consumed by the message, by the philosophy, that I neglected the fundamental principles of business. I believed that if my intentions were noble, if my content was powerful enough, the world would automatically conspire to support me. I was fighting a one-man war. I thought I was a one-man army. Anyone who offered a critique or a different suggestion, I viewed with suspicion. I believe they simply couldn't grasp the magnitude of my vision.
So you were, in effect, violating your own principle of creating a mastermind alliance.
Violating is a gentle word. I trampled it with my own pride. And the result was as predictable as the dawn. My financial partners pulled out, one by one, the costs mounted, the debts, and then one morning, I walked into an office that no longer existed. Everything was gone. All the capital, my reputation, and worst of all, my hope.
I can only imagine how devastating that moment was. At that point, standing in that void, looking at the ruins of your own dream, what were you thinking? Did it not cross your mind that perhaps all these principles of success were just beautiful, hollow words on a page?
Crossed my mind. Doctor, I was utterly convinced of it. I sat on the cold floor of that empty office and I said to myself, Napoleon, you are a fraud. You are a charlatan. You're selling people a philosophy that you can't even make work in your own life. That moment, that was the darkest hour of my soul. It was the point where I had, officially, in my own heart, given up.
So, what happened? What brought you back from that point?
The sentence we opened our conversation with. A sentence I had written 100 times, taught 1,000 times, but had never until that day truly felt it in every cell of my body.
Every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit?
Precisely. Lying there in that ruin, I finally understood its true meaning for the first time. I realized that my failure was not because the principles were flawed. My failure was because of my own shallow understanding of those principles. I thought a mastermind group meant gathering people to work for you. In that moment, I understood it meant having the humility to embrace collective wisdom, even when it contradicts your own ego. I thought persistence meant simply working hard. There, I learned that sometimes persistence means having the courage to admit you are wrong and to change your course. These stories, Dr. Sinclair, they are not evidence of my philosophy's failure. They are the philosophy itself.
So, what you're saying is these failures weren't a bug in the system, they were a feature of your own education?
That is it, precisely, Doctor. You have been asking the right question, but perhaps you, and so many others, have been looking for the answer in the wrong place. Society looks for flawless messengers. It looks for saints. I have never claimed to be a saint. I have never once claimed to be a perfect man, immune to failure. Quite the opposite. I was the first, and perhaps the most stubborn, student of this philosophy. My life was my laboratory.
A laboratory.
Yes. You cannot truly comprehend the principle of faith until you have spent a night trembling with fear and self-doubt. You cannot grasp the real meaning of turning defeat into opportunity until you have watched something you built with your own hands burn to the ground. These failures, Dr. Sinclair, they were not proof that the principles were ineffective. They were the necessary cost of discovering and refining them. A chemist will test 100 incorrect formulas before finding the one that works. Do those 99 failed experiments make him a bad chemist? Or do they, in fact, make him the expert?
This changes the entire frame. It's a complete paradigm shift. We have always looked for the author with the perfect biography before we would trust the book. We looked for the self-made millionaire who never had a misstep to teach us about wealth.
And that is the greatest error. Because one who has never known poverty cannot truly show the way out of it. One who has never known despair cannot teach the art of resilience. The credibility that you are searching for, it does not lie in my flawless biography, for one does not exist. The credibility of this philosophy lies in its efficacy, in the simple fact that these laws have worked not just for me, but for thousands upon thousands of others in circumstances far more difficult than my own. The credibility is in the message, Doctor, not in the mailman who got beaten up on his route.
So, all this time, we've been looking at your biography when we should have been looking in the mirror and testing these principles for ourselves.
Now, you have arrived at the heart of my philosophy.
This perspective, it feels more urgent today, Mr. Hill, more vital than perhaps ever before.
How do you mean?
We live in the age of the influencer, the age of the curated social media feed. It's a world where people present these perfectly polished, filtered, and edited versions of their lives. The perfect homes, the perfect relationships, the overnight success stories, the effortless wealth.
I see. A beautiful storefront with no view of the messy storeroom in the back.
Exactly. And that storefront, that impossible image, it makes the average person, a young man or woman just starting out, full of fire and talent, look at their own messy, complicated life and think, I can never be like them. My life is nothing like that. I already have so many problems. So I'm better off not even starting. It's a paralyzing comparison.
It is a paralyzing illusion. And the most dangerous theft happening in your world today is the theft of a young person's permission to begin. They mistakenly believe they must first be perfect before they can start, when in fact, the truth is the exact opposite.
How so?
Those problems, those early challenges, the lack of money, the uncertainty, those are not a young person's liabilities, they are their capital. They are the raw material from which character and resilience are forged. You cannot carve a magnificent sculpture from a perfectly smooth, polished stone. You require a raw block of marble, full of rough edges and imperfections. It is the resistance of that stone that allows the art to be created.
So we should be looking for teachers who are willing to show us their scars, not just their trophies.
What a beautiful way to phrase it, Doctor. Precisely, because the real lessons are embedded in the scars. A trophy only shows you the final result. A scar tells the story of the entire journey. It's a testament to the nights filled with doubt, to the attempts that met with failure, to all the moments when a soul had to choose between surrender and trying just one more time.
And that choice is what matters.
That choice is everything. So you tell that young person today, the one who feels small in the face of 1,000 perfect pictures, do not be afraid of failure. Do not be afraid to start with imperfect tools. Do not be afraid of living a real, messy, challenging life. The greatest successes are always born from the crucible of the greatest challenges. Go and build your own laboratory with whatever you have right now. And remember this, the power of your story does not lie in its perfection. It lies in its truth.
So, as we bring our conversation to a close, and I must thank you for this candid discussion, I want to ask one thing of you, of anyone who is listening to these words. It is not a great demand. It is an invitation.
An invitation?
An invitation to conduct a personal experiment. For the next 30 days, just 30 days, I want you to forget my life story. Put aside all the debates, all the criticisms about who I was or what I did. They are not important. Open my book, or simply call to mind the principles we have discussed, and choose just one, the one that speaks most directly to your life right now, to your greatest challenge or your deepest desire. Perhaps it is definiteness of purpose. Perhaps it is applied faith. Perhaps persistence. Just one. And make a promise to yourself to consciously, deliberately, Apply that single principle to everything you do for those 30 days.
Like a scientist testing a single hypothesis.
Precisely. Live with it, breathe it, and at the end of those 30 days, look at the results. Not at the words in a book, but at the tangible results in your own life. Has there been a small shift? Is your perspective slightly different? Do you feel a little stronger? The final arbiter is not me, nor is it my critics. The final judge is the evidence that comes from the laboratory of your own life. That is the only truth that matters.
A personal experiment. That's incredibly powerful because it takes the power and the responsibility away from the past and from other people and places it squarely back into our own hands. In the end, perhaps Napoleon Hill wasn't a flawless saint. He was a chemist whose own laboratory sometimes exploded, explosions that cost him his fortune and his reputation. But that doesn't diminish the value of the formulas he discovered amidst the chaos and the trial and error. We are here to examine the formula, not the personal life of the chemist.